Well, the world today is certainly different than the one in which we were living before the news of this draft opinion broke last night, right before Rachel's show began. But the fight to codify Roe remains an uphill battle. Over the past 2 years, Washington Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal has earned a reputation as a leader in this fight. As the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, she's been key to mobilizing nearly 100 members on key issues of social and economic justice. She's been an outspoken leader in the fight for reproductive rights. Just a few months ago, Congresswoman Jayapal was one of 3 members of Congress who stepped up to bravely tell the story of her own abortion.
I speak to you as one of the 1 in 4 women in America who have had an abortion. I knew I was not ready to have another child, so I religiously took my daily contraceptive pill. Despite that, I became pregnant. I consulted with my doctors, who told me that any future pregnancy would likely also be high risk to me and the child. After discussions with my partner, who was completely supportive of whatever choice I made, I decided to have an abortion. Whether the choice to have an abortion is easy or hard, whether there are traumatic situations or not, none of that should be the issue. It is simply nobody's business what choices we as pregnant people make about our own bodies.
Now tonight, Congresswoman Jayapal is one of the Democratic leaders tasked with coming up with a strategy for Democrats nationwide. Joining us now is the Washington Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. Congresswoman, thank you for being with us. We appreciate your time as always. You know, this is personal to you, but I think it doesn't need to be. In other words, for most people looking at this tonight, they need to look beyond whether or not they know someone who's had an abortion, know someone who might have an abortion, and see this in the context of a right that is being eroded.
That's right, Ali. And I think it is, the personal stories are important because I think that there are Republicans across the country who are trying to say that somehow this doesn't matter very much, or it's not important to us, or it doesn't mean anything for our futures. And I think these stories really showcase how complicated this is, how varied it is for people across the country, very different situations. And ultimately, this freedom is a critical freedom that we've already had 50 years of people growing up with the belief that they could make choices about their own body, that it was a constitutionally protected, settled law question. And today, this 5-majority Supreme Court, which, by the way, Ali, these 5 justices were appointed by Republican presidents who actually did not get the majority of the popular vote. And these 5 justices are trying to say, if this actually is, is the opinion we think it is, trying to say that this is not a fundamental right. And it is a terrifying thing because people need to understand not only what it means for our economic freedom, for families across this country who are trying to plan their pregnancies, but also for every other issue. Think about everything from Brown v. Board of Education, marriage equality, you name it. Loving, anything that we have considered settled law could really be taken away. And if you look at the language of the opinion, it's very scary and dangerous because it seems to be saying that if something isn't specifically named as a right in the Constitution from 200 years ago, that somehow that does not qualify as a right.
So one of the options, and this is one that you have been pursuing, is to codify this, to make this law passed by Congress. What is the path for that right now? It's really the Senate where this problem lies, but you heard Chuck Schumer talking about the fact that it's a different world now. The tectonic plates have shifted. Do you believe that to be true? And does that mean that there's a likelihood that the efforts that you in the House have gone through to codify abortion protections can be passed in the Senate?
Well, I certainly hope so. The House has passed the Women's Health Protection Act, which codifies Roe. We can pass it again. The Senate, I think it's very important for the Republican senators who voted for these justices, but said that they cared about abortion as a fundamental right, and actually one who even said that she got an assurance from one of those justices that this was settled law. I think it's very important for those senators in particular to be on the right side of history in ensuring that we protect this right, because they confirmed these justices, and now these justices are making a mockery of precedent. They're making a mockery of women's freedoms, and really of women overall, pregnant people overall. So the path is that I think the Senate Majority Leader has said they're going to bring this to the floor. It would need to get 60 votes in the Senate to pass, unless there is a carve-out for the filibuster. And let's be clear, Allie, they had a carve-out for the debt ceiling. It seems to me that we can have a carve-out for the filibuster. And if we got those two women senators who, said that they supported a woman's right to choose, to side with 49 Democrats, that would be sufficient to codify Roe v. Wade.
Congresswoman, we appreciate your time tonight. We appreciate you telling your personal stories to make them real for a lot of people who would otherwise deny how important this freedom is. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal is the chair of the Progressive Caucus. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie.